Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm having a morning, but I've solved things with help of a fantastic, fantastic team. So thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for putting up with my 7 minutes late. How are all of you? I'm so excited that you are hanging out here with me today. I think that this is an incredibly relevant topic, as we've been talking a lot lately in all kinds of streams, both our own and ones that we've been invited to as a team, all about the creator economy this year and what it means to be a creator in this new space, in this new time, and how to be successful at it. And a lot of that comes down to monetization and how to be effective, how to bring on sponsors, how to make money at all of this, right? But I think many of us have this feeling in the back of our head or this number in our mind that we need to have millions and millions of subscribers or thousands of people watching our live streams and our video content and our podcasts in order to be successful or in order to hit that kind of magic number to be profitable at this. So I'm really super excited to have Luria here today. For those of you who don't know who she is, you are in for a treat. She is absolutely incredible. She's been at this for just years and is just such a great leader in this space. So we are going to bring her on. She'll be here to answer all of your questions. So if you have one, drop a Q and a colon into the chat and I'll be sure to pull it on screen. And if you have one and you're watching on replay, no worries. We'll pull that up later and we'll make sure that we answer it after the stream ends. We're just so excited that you're here. Luria! Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. These are always my favorite. I know, it's so fun. It's so fun. And I was saying, I love your purple. We're like this profile in Ecamm is called Rainbow. So
I love it.
we're bringing all of the color today.
Color.
I'm so delighted you're here, and it's such good timing, I think, for all of this. I feel like I was just on Social Media News Live with Jeff and Grace last week, talking all about this, and I was like, I feel like a little bit of a fraud because I don't do a lot of this myself, but I learn from people like you. So I think it's just it's good timing to have this conversation, and we have the whole fam here hanging out with us, so they'll, I'm sure, drop questions in along the way. But I see all of them, all of their patient selves hanging out in the chat today. But yeah, why don't we kick it off by giving a little bit of a background on who you are and what Live Streaming Pros is, so that anyone that, I'm sure there's probably not a lot who are watching who don't already know who you are, but just in case we pull new folks in.
It's been like a year since I've really been, on the Ecamm channel consistently, and I do miss this amazing community. So
we'll have to bring you back.
I know. We're cooking up some stuff, guys. We're cooking up some stuff. So that's a little teaser. I am talking for the first time this morning. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I started back in 2005. Before you remember the video iPod at all, before the iPhone even existed?
No. Yes.
I
will admit to knowing that.
So my content was out first on that device before the iPhone, before YouTube really took off. And so I've been doing this for 17 years, and I have really seen it all, right? I grew up an audience of 2 million, lost those people by pivoting incorrectly and really having burnout, right? And that's, excuse me, hey?
No, you're fine. I'm so glad that you're going to talk about burnout, because I think that's such a big part of it. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's so key, right? We all kind of are aware that this burnout thing exists in the creator economy, and it's such a dangerous thing to allow yourself to get into. And so I've become very, 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 very passionate about making sure that people know that when they're putting content out there, there are certain things that they've got to be aware of and do and not do so that they don't wind up in burnout. I got so burnt out after 10 years of doing this. I blew everything up. Yeah. And most people don't come back from burnout.
Oh,
if you get that burnt out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
And I did come back, and I had to start from scratch, right?
Yeah.
I'm so glad I came back.
Yeah.
But I had to start from zero again, right? And build up those small audiences and get that larger and larger and larger. And that was a real lesson. And I'm very grateful for that, as weird as it sounds. I went through a lot of therapy for that one.
As we all should and do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And there are a lot of emotions that come with this process of putting yourself out there, right? And one of my students actually recently told me, she was like, when I came to you, I was really struggling with this concept of like wanting to be seen and heard and not wanting to be seen and heard. Can anybody relate to
absolutely.
that?
Yeah. And the level of vulnerability that exists within this space as well, right? So it's like this game of, you want to be real and authentic and vulnerable, but like not too vulnerable, and
Right.
and like how much is too much to be out there and how much is not enough that it's really hard to kind of, and I think your story is so great because you have been at it for so long, but because, as you said, because you've had these like kind of, mountains and valleys of you're right. I mean, of really going through it and of having, as you said, like millions of people and millions of eyes on you, and then none. And then, and having to think through all of that and what that means and how to grow that. So yeah, I think it's.
And I think that's a really important thing, right? I have had millions of eyeballs on me. I've been on TV stations. I've been a host of TV stations. I've been guests of TV stations. Like, I've had big audiences. I hosted for Panasonic and Samsung, right? They have thousands of people watching it at the same time. So like, I've been there, and I will tell you, it's not all it's cracked up to be, right? Like, I think that we have to have that real talk. I wound up, I would get recognized because of the big eyeballs. I would get recognized in the grocery store, out and about. And that's really cool. I love meeting people, right? I love that. And at the same time, because two things can be true at the same time, I felt like I needed to hide away, right? Like I picked my apartment where I wanted to live because it wasn't seen by other people. And when I moved into one of my apartments, I remember getting tweeted from somebody who was like, "Hey, you just moved into my apartment complex." I'm like, "Oh," right? So there is that kind of aspect to having a very large audience. And I think that people don't recognize the desire to get there, and also what could be true if you do, right? So let's focus on what really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is such a good kind of segue into what we're talking about today, which is I feel as though, particularly in the creator space and in the, in those of us who are out here live streaming, podcasting, creating video and audio and all of this content out here in these public spaces, because of kind of the history of it and kind of how this space has evolved from this television world, from this radio world. There's kind of this concept among all of us that, we really do need to hit like these crazy high thresholds of fans, of viewers, of people in order to be successful. And even people, I've been talking a lot, even with just friends of mine who are, moving into the podcasting space and are like, oh, I want to start like a sports podcast with one of my friends. And they're like, we're just doing this for fun. But like, after a couple of months, like we hope to make some money at this. Right. So but even those conversations, like the idea is like, if you're doing this, you will make money. If you're doing this, you need to have this crazy high threshold in order to make money. And it can be really daunting. And I just think there's so many preconceived notions about it. So I'm so excited that you're here to kind of break some of those stereotypes and those notions and talk through what the reality is, because it is a really busy space. And I think that there's a really big difference between, most of us kind of in the creator space and super high level celebrities, YouTubers who are in that kind of millions of viewers and millions of people. And I do think that there is room if we can figure out exactly, what that formula is, or what the resetting some of those expectations.
Yeah. And I think that it is such an important conversation. And the reality is, in this day and age, especially, right, when we do have big superstar YouTubers and it is so crowded, like you said, the thing that you need to focus on the most is getting the right audience.
Exactly.
And the reality is you are just dealing with ego if you're trying to get the big audience, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ego is normal. Ego is human. Ego is not bad until it reaches a certain threshold.
Yeah.
But if you can recognize that that's all it is, then you can start to say, okay, well, let's focus on the things that actually matter, like the right viewers, the right community, engagement with your community. Engagement is the number one thing that will make or break your experience trying to actually make some money from this, right? And so, one of my students, Andy Smiles, she's a bookkeeper. She came to me wanting to live stream, and she wanted to produce like content and grow her bookkeeping business.
Yeah.
And I said, great, let's do it, right? You're not going to have any live viewers the first time out. She had no audience whatsoever, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly.
Like it is, like we've all been there. We've all experienced it. You don't have viewers yet until you build that. So she went into it. She took a Post-it and she covered up the view count so that it wouldn't distract her or that she wouldn't get that ego trip, right? And so she went live. She delivered in the show flow that I teach and the structure of it. And she just showed up like there was 100 people watching, right? She just like delivered. And nobody did watch. Nobody commented, right? There's 0 viewers whatsoever. The next day, the following day, one person watched that video. And guess what happened? $3,000 contract. Like, boom. That was the right viewer. That was the person who needed her services. And so that's, I think it's so powerful, right? Is to realize it doesn't matter how many live viewers, the replay is powerful in and of itself. It doesn't matter how many people watch a video or a live stream. The power is in the who. And so getting your targeting right, knowing who you're talking to, knowing the content structure, those things are going to matter more than it will how many people are watching. That $3,000 contract, by the way, turned into a bigger contract later down the road with that same person. And that person loved Andy so much that she was just spreading the word, like, and that's what you create when you're doing videos and you show up like 100 people are there and you engage with people and you just show up authentically. You're going to create this pool of people who just can't stop singing your praises.
Yeah. And I think, what's so impactful about video that we sometimes forget in the live streaming space is that it really is building a level of trust with people that are watching you on the other side, and they don't have to be live to be building that trust, right? So I think that's really great advice and a really great approach for it, because if you do bring kind of your authentic self and your energy and you're delivering value and you're helping people, if they're catching that on a replay, and they have that really great experience of getting to know you better and you've helped them in something, then when they see you again, they're continuing to build that relationship. And then when they, maybe it's not an immediate thing. Maybe it's not, maybe that was a great story, but maybe it's not, that one person that watches,
next day,
maybe they don't, immediately, want to purchase your services or buy your products or invest in you. But maybe when they get to that point along the line, they will, and they will have you and your advice and and all of your spirit and your energy in mind as they're making that buying decision. We use this example all the time at Ecamm, but we have a couple of really awesome Ecamm lawyers, not lawyers that work for Ecamm, but Ecamm users who are lawyers. We have a team of lawyers. No, just kidding. But they're a really great example of this as well, because these are folks who are, especially as the pandemic started off, they were using live streaming and now continue to use live streaming as a way to get important information out to people who, you know, may not need that information right now, but when they're looking for it and it's discoverable and the video comes up, you know, they're able to get that information with a level of, you know, authority and trust that wouldn't exist elsewhere. Like, you know, questions like that are things that when you need it, you really need it. And then when down the line, when you need to hire a lawyer, you're going to trust the person who gave you that help, who, you know, helped you to find that answer. So yeah, I think it's super important to think of. And I think it's really good timing because we've been having all of these conversations at least in the eCam space, and I'm sure outside of it, about AI and kind of, you know, how all of this plays into what we do as creators. And I think so much of it comes down to using these tools to improve the text and the content and the discoverability of your videos to do just that. So like if you're showing up consistently and you're creating these videos, whether they're live or recorded, you can use tools like that to really make it super discoverable. And I think really like that's where the money is going to come in, right? Because you're helping that right audience find that content. And, you know, and that is where you're going to win probably in more cases than, you know, regular sponsorships or ad revenue or some of those things that I think are a little bit splashier and more noticeable and people think is the first step. I think it's really more on the, on the like clients or people purchasing your services and your products because you've made that content discoverable and you've built up a level of trust and authority.
Yeah. And like Mari said, right? Like, people may not be shopping, but they might mention to somebody who is shopping for your products.
Absolutely, right? And the video is so shareable, like across all of these different platforms. Andy's got a really great question here, which was on my list as well. So we're in the hive mind today. Andy wants to know what is the best way to find that right audience, right? So we talk a lot about like, you know, niching down or niching down and, you know, and finding that perfect group. How do you kind of, if you've gotten past the like, everyone needs to see my video and you're into like the right people need to see my video, how are you going about figuring out where to find those people?
There are a couple of things. Number one, your right audience might be you in a past life, right? In a past part of your journey. It's very likely that that's the case. For probably 99% out there, it is. So start there, right? Like, why are you sharing what you're sharing? What knowledge, experience have you had, and where were you before you gained that knowledge or experience or skill or passion? You can start to identify who that target person is. Now, another one of my students, Kevin, is so great. He passed the 10,000 subscriber mark recently and is already at like 13,000. So he's just been growing
He's
fast.
Like zooming up. I love it.
Yes, it's so great. It's so great. But what happened before, like he's actually been doing this quite a while, right? And Kevin is a perfect example of choosing to niche down and speak to the right audience. He used to create content around, just robots in general and robotic stuff in general.
I love it.
He had one video about the Raspberry Pi that took off. He understood, because this is what I harp on in my programs, right? It's like with my community, I'm always like, when you find something that hits, that's telling you something, right? And so he niched down and he really started focusing in on the Raspberry Pi market. And that's when we saw the blow up. That's when he started to hit 5,000, 7,500, 10,000, 13,000. And he's just going to keep going. He's now getting featured in all these Raspberry Pi magazines and blogs and videos. And he recently was like, somebody who has a much bigger channel than I wanted to collaborate with them. And I was too afraid to ask. Well, I'm always telling people to push beyond their comfort zone. So he did ask, and they were like, absolutely. So he got this collaboration with a bigger channel, once you niche down, once you really understand who it is you're talking to and can create that content around that person, then things do tend to blow up like that, right? It's very, very important. People are afraid that when you choose to talk to what we always say is like a single person, right? That single kind of audience member that you're thinking of. They fear losing people. And again, we're going to come back to ego, right? And like, you're
Yeah.
not going to lose everybody. You're going to talk to the right person so that they hear you better and
Yep.
show up in droves. And then you will get outliers. Absolutely. Like if
Yeah.
if somebody's talking specifically to women, they're going to have some men in their audience as well that hear the message and speak to that. But a majority of their audience, their perfect person is that woman, right? Or the Raspberry Pi person, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too that it's okay if some of those non-perfect people stumble across. Like what's so kind of special and impactful about a platform like YouTube, if that's where you're choosing to create content or to stream to, is that it is such a powerful search engine. So again, if you have the vision and your topic and what you want to talk about really clearly outlined, you've got it all set up correctly, you're paying attention to your analytics and diving deep into those topics, the platform itself is going to help the right audience find the content, and if you're paying attention to it, you and the platform together are going to kind of help narrow in on that. But anyone else that's listening outside that, maybe they're not your target audience, but maybe they're watching it because they have a friend or a business contact or a partner who needs that information that they're going to share that information with. So they may not be the right audience right now, but there's a reason why they're watching, and if you're doing it correctly, you are automatically kind of pushing out the people that are not relevant by how you are categorizing and the kind of content you're creating and how you're positioning it. So
Exactly. And I want to share also along these lines, right? When I had to start over from scratch, like we were talking about before, I was seeing 4 people watching live, right?
Yep.
5, and everybody here knows that game. And it was a big ego hit. It was hard to watch going from where I had been.
Yep.
And I think I was at like 12 simultaneous viewers when this happened. But two people reached out because I had learned to get focused, right? I had niched down what I was talking about at that stage. And there were like 12 people at that stage. And then like, guess who reached out to me? Orange County Shoppers and GoDaddy. Like, boom, right? Like, because I got clear about who I was talking to, about what I wanted to present in the topic. And so once you do that, the right people will show up. And they didn't care that I had 12 viewers. They just knew I was the one talking about the thing that they wanted to hear about and needed help with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think India's got a really good question here. So how taboo is it to have a channel around a niche, which you sort of covered, but I think this is one of those questions that we have all the time because we as content creators are always like, multiple projects, right? Ecamm's guilty of this as well, right? Like we have like a podcast and live shows and we have different creators we're working with. And it's like, do you put that on one channel? Do you open multiple channels? How many different places are you branding with different things? So that's generally her question. Rephrased it for you, India. Sorry.
India, tell me you're not thinking about this. She's one of my coaches in my program.
The answer is no.
So Renee Ritchie, who's YouTube's now is YouTube's
incredible
ambassador.
creator. Yep.
What's the phrase?
I know. Ambassador is the closest I can remember as well. So sorry.
I'm on the verge of it. But anyway, Renee Ritchie, amazing creator. We go way back to my early days of doing video.
Yeah.
And I've seen him grow so much. He is one of the smartest people I have ever met because he's just so deep into like analytics and understanding these things, right? Which is why YouTube has hired him. He puts it the best way I can think of to get that point across. If you want to create content that's a different potential topic, the question is of whether it goes on your channel or you create a new channel. Is it the same audience, same channel? Different audience, different channel? That's just like so simple, so easy. is it the same audience, then it can go on the same thing or talk, on your same kind of promotion cycle, right? If it's a different audience, it needs to be separated. And I would take a step further of really, do you really need to?
I know. This is me circling back to the burnout point at the beginning where I'm 100%, I know, Luria, you are a little bit as well, or maybe a lot of it, but I am absolutely guilty of being like, all the projects, yes to everything. Like so excited and really want to do it. And there is something to be said for, again, in the same way that we're recommending that you find that perfect audience, that you really get laser focused on it. Multiple channels, multiple projects, it makes it really, really difficult. How about instead multiple revenue ideas for the one project, right? So, all of the different ideas for how to make money off of the one cool thing that you're doing instead, because it can. I would warn all of you, as someone who's super guilty of this, that it can be really an easy way to, at least without a really super great team or a really defined workflow and lots of efficiencies and automations along the way, it can lead to burnout really, really quickly. It's super easy to be like, I'm live every Thursday and also Wednesdays and also Fridays, and then be like, I'm not okay.
Yeah. Every creator out there needs to be reading the book Essentialism. It's about the art of saying no more, right? And like the more you say no, the more results you will get. I say this on the verge of actually me launching a second brand, but it's actually very strategic. I've taken months to think about it, right? Yeah. And I have a team of 8 people, and we have all those systems in place, right? Like we have the things that we need to do. But also I have to sit here and think, okay, where am I going to hit burnout? What do I need to do in order to not get there with a second brand? And so I would, if you're going to, you really do need that structure and that planning ahead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Eric.
Eric's here. I'm here. Eric's here all week. I love it.
Creating Daily, says this is great information. Yay, glad. But I've monetized super early from getting focused. Yes, that's what we're talking about. Like, that's so cool. I'm amazed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes a really big difference. And it's always like the piece of advice that's super obvious, but we're like, obviously, but then we never do it. So it's definitely one of those things out there. I want to talk a little bit about the different, like monetization as a term or as a category is one of those things that gets thrown around a lot along there with creator economy. So why don't we talk a little bit about like, what are the options, I guess? What kinds of ways can creators monetize, and should they be focused on one thing within monetizing, or is it a strategy of, a few different things? So let's talk a little bit about what monetization actually means for all of us on a day-to-day basis.
Great question. So there are 2 types of monetization. We've got on-platform monetization. So let's take YouTube, but this applies to any platform, has on-platform monetization options. So for like YouTube, it's AdSense, right? You put a video out there, they run ads against it, and you get a percentage of that money. Yep. There's also the membership on platforms like YouTube memberships. Facebook has a membership option, right? Yep. So there are those things. And also I would classify sponsorships as an on-platform monetization strategy. And when I really think about on-platform, it's requiring you to actually put content out there in order to make money. And that's where we get into the danger zone, because, and that's honestly what most 90% of creators are doing, is they're putting content out there with the expectation of making money.
Yeah. And that's what is you're right. I think there's so many misconceptions around that category and what that actually means, and what amount of money can actually come from that, and what all the metrics are behind it. So I completely agree.
And the question you have to ask yourself is, what happens if you do hit burnout? What happens if you get sick and you need to take a step back? What happens if the algorithm changes and doesn't give you as much love? What happens if you have a death in the family? What happens if life happens, right?
Yeah. What
And
happens
you
when
can't.
life happens? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, right? When you can't put content out there, because it's going to happen if you're in this for the long haul, your revenue goes down, your revenue stops potentially. And so that's where the off platform revenue options come into play. And that's when you start building an actual sustainable business from your content, so that you can like make money when you aren't as consistent and not putting content out there. And that's looking like things like your courses or consulting, coaching, membership programs. There are all kinds of different ways to build money or to make money off of the platform, but using that audience that you're building on the platform to actually support all of it as a whole. And I'm a perfect example of life happening. Last year, I'd gone through a couple of years of really harsh transition. And last year I was pretty burnt out. I didn't really recognize it until the end of the year, when I took a step back and I was like, wait, I have not created much content at all that last year. Like, if you look at our channel, it's like very lacking in content. Of course, you have to be consistent in order to be inconsistent. But once you get there, we had our largest revenue quarter in Q3 last year, having not put out content as much, right? So that's powerful stuff when you realize you can take a step back and your revenue can still be coming in and potentially growing.
Yeah. And again, I think that goes back to what you said at the beginning of this stream, which is, really understanding that when you're thinking about live streaming, and I would say, to some extent, let's just keep it live streaming. When you're thinking about live streaming, those live viewers are great, but really thinking through like what the life of that content is going to be, and thinking long term and keeping that energy and the value of the content really high throughout that live stream, because you're really using that as, in many ways, a marketing vehicle for all of that second bucket of monetization, that second category of monetization. Instead of thinking through like, how is this content going to make me ad revenue, or to get a sponsor, or to any of those kinds of flashier, more popular options out there. If you're thinking instead on how can this video content and these live streams and what I'm creating become the vehicle whereby people discover how valuable I am as a coach, or want to be able to get to know me better, or dive deeper, or join my community, or join my course or my membership, because you're giving them, enough free help and enough free value that they do want to take that step, right? So you're building that level of trust, and you're using all of those streams as a marketing vehicle, really, for the revenue. And so, like you said, then if you need to take a longer break, that content's all still out there working for you. Ideally, it's really well optimized and discoverable, so that people are finding it, people are sharing it, and you're spending the time where it matters, which is in those spaces, helping serve people face to face, spending that time being able to dive deeper. And then those people are then recommending, right, all of your live streams and your free video, because they want to be able to share that experience and those wins with all of their contacts and their colleagues. So you're forming this really nice circle that ideally is created and sustained in a way that isn't leading you to that point where you're feeling really burned out. But also, when life happens, you can step back a little bit, because the people who are in your membership or who are doing your course, likely you've created a process whereby they can continue on without needing you to be there every single day, or you have that relationship with them where you can say like, I'm having this moment in my life, and we're taking this vacation, or I'm spending time with family, or I need to be doing this thing. So
and
it's a change in perspective.
Absolutely. And you come from a marketing background of knowledge, right? And I think that that's the key here, right? And most creators are afraid of that term. They're afraid of thinking like a business, right? They think of themselves as a content creator, and that identity stops them from thinking like an entrepreneur, where you are wearing those other hats to say, okay, I'm not only wearing the hats of a content creator where I have to shoot, I have to create content, I've got to edit, and I've got to learn engagement. But you're also now wearing that other hat of the marketing vehicle and understanding the business side of things. And it doesn't have to be as scary as it might sound, because like, well, I have a team member, like team of 8, and we're going to be growing this year and next year. Like, not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants to run a company of that size, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's totally fine. But when you understand what that is that you do want, and that end result, you can start putting the right hats on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've been on a kick lately since last year's Leap event. But one of our speakers said this, like, to me, brilliant thing that I just never really thought about. I mean, we're a small team here, and she's like, you really should be thinking of the tools that you're using, all of the, software and the subscriptions and all of that stuff that you have, as your teammates. And if they're not like effective teammates that are, helping you to pass the buck, saving you time, being more efficient, fire them. Like get rid of them, right?
Great.
So yeah, like so whether it's, whether you're building a business and a team like what Luria is doing, or you're by yourself, but you really should, if you are by yourself, you should still have the right tools to be successful, to save you time, to be able to make that process as streamlined as possible. Because again, like, as a content creator, most of what you are selling is your time, right? So you really need to be as efficient as possible with that. So yeah, I think
most important at that stage, right? As a solo content creator.
Yeah. So get really good at understanding what those platforms are. Doc is on a mission right now this year to like really dive deep into LinkedIn and really like have a better understanding of that as a platform. And so he's just like not paying attention to some of those other tools, because he needs to really focus, right, on the one and really understand it well. And I think sometimes as creators, we're guilty of like, and marketers are as well. So it's like double for me, but we're guilty of like, oh, new thing, like they're like, oh, the AI technology is out and I need to I need to make sure that I'm on TikTok and I need to understand like that I am doing this. Sometimes we need to really, in the same way, have to dive deep and find that right audience. You sort of have to, maybe set aside and put aside some of those tools to be able to figure out like what is the best platform for you, what is the right place, or do what Doc is doing and spend a year or whatever time frame it is really diving deep into them to figure out, is it the right place, is it the right time? Because your time is probably better really understanding how a particular platform works or what the opportunity is versus kind of playing around with all of them here and there as time comes up. So
totally.
Yeah,
Well,
I would say.
Let me know what you find out about LinkedIn.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Doc's going to teach us all about LinkedIn by the end of the year. It's going to be fantastic. I love it. I love the algorithm is a bit like a wife. Sometimes what you think works may need some tweaking. Oh, goodness. You guys always make me laugh. Just looking through to see.
I think women would say the same thing about men.
I know, exactly. Yeah, right back at you.
Just so we're on the same page here.
I love it. I love all the great questions and comments coming through. Awesome. Yeah, well, I think this is probably a good time since you just talked about courses and memberships. You just launched one yourself. I would love for you to tell a little bit more about what that is and why folks should get involved.
Thanks. Yeah. So we completely last year changed our entire course and membership platform because it dawned on me finally after 17 years. I'm a slow learner. No, after 17 years of watching this process of content creators and where they're failing, right? And I've identified 4 different phases that literally we all go through to see growth. And it goes beyond those 4 phases, but to get to the point of where you can say, yes, I have grown my channel and my business from content to get $5,000 a month in revenue.
Awesome.
Consistent revenue.
Yeah.
Let's talk consistent revenue, right? Because that, if you're just making willy-nilly $5,000 a month, you're still wondering where how the bills are going to be paid.
Yeah, you can't do any kind of
grow.
planning. Exactly.
No.
You can't grow.
So it's really about that consistent and recurring revenue as well. And so really I've identified these 4 different phases that you kind of go through in each stage. And I'm doing a free masterclass training on this actually today, but we have a couple of other dates as well if you can't join us today. But this is a completely free training. I'm, like I said at the beginning, I've become so passionate about not having people go through the same mistakes I've gone through, not hitting burnout, not having consistent revenue. And so I really want to make sure that you all have the tools you need to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to do all of the things. I'm going to focus on where I am in my journey. And that's the biggest mistake people make, because as a beginner content creator, you're looking at all these YouTube channels about, what to do and how to do it and how to grow. And you're doing things that I'm doing 17 years later and you should not be, right? Because I'm at, I'm in multiple high 6-figure business at this point. So if we're talking getting you to the point of $5,000 a month, then, we've got to focus on the right things in your part of the journey. So today's masterclass is really about those 4 different phases. And I'm going to just get real and raw with you. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do to get out of each phase. And I'm going to tell you what problems you're going to face in that phase, because I think that it's really important that we understand what's coming, right? What those challenges are going to be as we're growing. And so there's a lot of emotion that is tied to that causes the burnout. And I want you to know exactly what you're going to face, those challenges that you're going to face, and how to avoid them, right? So that's what I'm sharing today. And I would love, love, love for you to join us to take this conversation and go deeper and really make sure that you have some structure to this stuff, because there is structure, there is a formula, and it's not what everybody thinks it is. You know what I mean? Like nobody really talks about that. Like they're just like, oh, here's how you grow your channel. Here's how you grow your audience. Well, what about all the rest of the stuff?
Yeah. And I think it's, again, to kind of take it back to the top of this show or this presentation was, there's just so many misconceptions out there. And because this is a field where everything is public, right? There's this kind of notion that you'll waste so much time scrolling through and searching and watching a ton of different videos out there. And many of them are going to have really similar advice, but like Luria said, you need to know where you are. And to be able to do that, you're going to need to be able to see the big picture. And so I think this is just a really great opportunity to figure out where you're at and where you want to go and what those steps are. And like you said, I love that you're also going to cover what those pain points are, what those challenges that are going to come up, because it's one thing to kind of make a plan. It's a really different experience to actually go through it and figure out what to do when things go wrong. And to have a support system is really huge. So, Ecamm is all about the Ecamm fam. And the reason, right? Like the reason behind that is that it's much easier to be able to learn when you can be around other people that are at the same point as you. And so I will say that like what Luria has done here and what this offers is really just a chance to also spend time with other people in the same space as you, or, be able to chat with them after and be able to take those steps.
I think it's, it is a lonely place to be as a content creator, right? You're putting stuff out there and you do feel alone a lot, and you feel like the challenges that you're facing are really only you. And that creates this lack of confidence. It creates lack of momentum. And when you realize by getting into a community, as you all know, by being a part of the Ecamm fan, which is one of the best communities other than my own on the internet, it is about exactly what you just said, is understanding that, we're all going through the same problems. We're all going through the same things.
Yeah.
And you can, find these little nifty tricks and tips and hacks, right? I'm also on the masterclass going to share the one thing that everybody tells you to do that I'm going to give you permission to not do it.
That alone is worth going to be able to figure it out, because I'm sure I'm doing it. Yeah, no, I see. So because I've worked with thousands of creators, in a smaller group environment, and watching the big picture out there publicly, literally every channel will tell you to do this one thing, and you shouldn't at the beginning. So it's really, really important because it stops people. Yeah, I'm so excited that you're doing this. I am such a big believer in both the power of community and collaborative learning, but also in really understanding not only your audience, but where you're at. So I think everyone watching now and later in the replay, take some time, whether it's this or anything else, but I'm hoping it's this. But yeah, take some time and really figure out what those steps are, because it does not take millions. I know we all have that million number in our head. We're like, 1 million subscribers, 1 million viewers, $1 million. It's you can do more with less. You can get more with less. And I think it really comes down to understanding yourself better, your goals, your audience, and really kind of working through those steps. But it is significantly easier doing it collaboratively. So let's make this the year where we all get way better at this monetization thing, because there's just so much noise out there that getting really specific and intentional with it, I think, is hugely important. And Paul is saying there's still time. Actually, secure your seat.
Yeah, the masterclass. Do you have your link though, Katie?
I don't. You know what? I'm no, not that I made a concerted effort. I'm good. I actually just believe in this.
You're amazing.
Luria's paying, so we're talking about monetization, and Luria was kind enough to offer me up an affiliate link. But for us, we believe in what Luria does, and we know how impactful this is for all of our creators out there. So for us, really, I just think it's a really great opportunity for you to get out there and make a difference. The questions you are all always sending me are like, I want to be able to, have a sponsor. I want to be able to build a membership. I really want to be able to be successful at this. So I believe in you all, and I know that this is just going to be a really great opportunity. So yeah, I'm so appreciative that you came on today, Luria, and thank you so much for being patient with me. Hey, we're gonna get that Amesbury office up and running with effective internet here soon. I promise. I promise all of you. But that's all right. That's why we have 2 offices, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. No worries. I totally get it. I'm a live streamer too, right? So I appreciate you allowing me to have this conversation. It is truly the thing that I live for, right? And seeing people, like you said, we believe in you. We believe in your capabilities.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to get out of your own way in order to achieve that. And sometimes you face things that stop you, but if you have the knowledge and if you have the support, you will make a big difference in terms of continuing forward. I love what Hank just shared.
Yeah, it is. Hank, it is incredibly lonely out there, and those of us who are able to keep pushing forward. I keep joking with all of my friends and even professional contacts. I'm like, this year we're just going to fail forward. We're going to continue to move forward, and we're going to learn from the things that we've done, rather than sitting here and saying like, I can't do that until this thing or that point, or this perfectionism that gets in the way. We're going to do this. We're going to do this together, because as we do it and in my case, publicly out in front of all of you, you will know that you are not alone in this. You are not alone.
Yes,
you are not alone
exactly.
in having these kinds of questions about like what to do next, or, you know, I want to get to that point of being able to make a consistent revenue stream from what I'm doing. I'm passionate about being a creator. I want to be able to get there. We hear you, and it is possible, but it is going to take that work and those steps to really figure out how to get there, what are the steps to get there, and who are the people that are going to be there when you hit those points and you're like, I tried this and it didn't work. Having those people that you can reach out to and talk with, and building that little micro community of similar level creators and at similar stages and steps as you is going to be really helpful. So you've got this. You've got this.
You do have this. You got this. I just have to say, I don't know if you're hearing my dog whine over there.
No, I'm actually not. All right.
Abby's like staring me down. I always wonder, I was thinking about this the other day. I always wonder what our dogs and what our cats think of, like when we're just sitting here staring and talking to an inanimate object.
I'm actually happy that I do this for the most part in the office, because my dog so I have a lab, and he's big. He's like probably like big boxy lab. And he would just he does this thing where he will sit directly like between me and the television and just like lean closer until he's like almost entirely on my lap. Like he just like,
that's awesome.
It's like, please notice me. So he would just be like sliding in along the side.
That would be awesome content.
It would be kind of epic, yeah. I may have to, when I finish building out a studio in the new space in my new house, I'll have to invite him up and just see what he does. But yeah, that's a good point.
Love it.
Cats are almost as bad. Paul always has Maestro like walking across his screen or doing. Cats don't care. Dogs like try to get your attention. Cats are just like, I'm here. Pay attention to me.
Exactly. Pay attention.
Well, thank you so much for spending time, and thank you to everyone that tuned in and watched, and thank you to all of the replay viewers. Here we are with 30-ish or so of you watching live, but as we said, there's going to be lots more catching this on replay, and the more we optimize this video and get it out there, the more eyes are on it. So hit that like button, hit that share button, and if you are part of the Ecamm fam, which I assume you are since you're hanging out with us, we have big news. We have Ecamm Live 4.0 is dropping in 1 week. January 26th. So make sure that you hit RSVP or add, a calendar invite to your calendar so that you can hang out with us on Thursday in a week, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll be walking you through everything that this amazing release has. So yeah, and Luria's like right there, ready to take you through all of it. So yeah, we're forcing her to overwork and redo tutorial videos and all of that stuff. So
yes.
Speaking of burnout, we're sorry.
It's all your fault.
Oh no, but it's gonna be an exciting.
I can't wait for 4.0.
Yeah, it's gonna be an awesome year, everyone. So we're really excited to see what everyone creates and creates effectively and earns money from it, winning all the way around. All right. Well, we will see you all next time. Thanks again, Luria.
Thank you so much.